Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. I'm here today to talk to you about saws for specialist purposes. I've dragged a few out that I own and we're going to go through what they are and what they're used for. But first of all, I want to apologise that I didn't get a video out last Sunday. I'll put a photo in now as to what it is that we've been doing. Unfortunately, the sheep, our sheep, we farm a few Baldwin Welsh Mountains and North Country Cheviot pedigree sheep are due for lambing, and I thought it was a good idea to rip the lambing shed to bits and install some new infrastructure. So the photos will be here now of what it is that we've done. So, specialist saws, which is what I want to talk to you about today. There's a range here of saws, all of which had a role within woodwork or building or gardening, that really have been replaced. Almost all of them have been replaced in one way or another by shall we say, power tools, battery tools, cordless tools, or updated, really, probably. So the woodworking tools are things like this floorboard saw, these letterbox saws, the trenching saws, and the keyhole saws. They've all been replaced, really. So the keyhole saws have been replaced with multi-tools and jigsaws. Same with the letterbox saws. The flooring saw has been replaced with a multi-tool or battery cordless, battery circular saws. And the trenching saws really have been completely superseded by CNC machines and handheld routers. Not to say that these tools don't have a place. So we'll start off, we'll look at the floorboard saw. So very typical, this is a very typical saw that would have been found in many trades toolboxes. So carpenters' toolboxes, plumbers, electricians, the general builders, they would have all had these floorboard saws, curved on one edge, and then there's a very short straight cut on the other, and they're curved to allow you to go into the cut, so you can start your cut but work tight against the wall. So if you're tight against the wall, you can get in, and it allows you to get down further with a straight saw. And these saws would have been used for taking the tongues out between boards, cutting the ends of boards so you can lift them. I find this, I have got another one that is sharp. This one isn't sharp, but I find them quite good actually for kerfing joints when I'm timber framing, especially if you've got an awkward sort of shoulder that you can't quite get into. So yeah, I still use mine, not necessarily for its intended purpose. Then moving on, we have a pruning saw. So this is a double-sided pruning saw. It has quite coarse teeth, end pattern teeth there, and a fine set of teeth there. Having never used a saw like this, I've used more modern pruning saws, really. I've never used an older style pruning saw like this. I'm assuming these were for bigger branches and these were for your smaller cuts, your finished cuts. I'd imagine it's quite a useful tool. Then we get on to the ubiquitous trenching saws. I know apprentices that trained along with my father in the 1970s and 80s, early 80s. They were expected to use these saws to cut stair string, to cut the trenching or the housings into stair stringers. So you would drill a hole at where the ball nose of the stringer would come to, and you'd work from the back of the stringer, and you'd then cut down to depth with this saw. I've never used one. I've always used a power router, but I know those who do, grumble incessantly about them because they're not, they're a very short stroke, and I should think they are very awkward to use. But they have saw nuts in, and you can adjust the depth of the cut by sliding the blade. They have a slotted blade in them. Or adjust the depth of your trench by sliding the blade backwards and forwards. This one is a little veneer saw. These are still available from the likes of Thomas Flynn or a little razor saw. This one I think had 2 studs originally with wing nuts on. Whether the blades were replaceable on this particular type, I don't know. It's a very, very cheap one that I brought in a mixed lot. But a very fine cutting saw, very fine tooth saw for cutting very thin pieces of veneer for marquetry and that sort of thing. Then we get on to probably my favourite saws on this table are these little letterbox saws. So I've got 2 sizes here, one slightly shorter than the other. This one here, I don't know if we can get it in shot very well, but this one is an ice saw, but you can just see the maker's mark there. And this one, where have I just seen that? This one is there. You can just see it there. Is a Drabble & Sanderson again, which is the same as the big rip saw I sharpened. So these would have been used. You'd have drilled. You'd have marked out on your door, on your rail. You'd have marked out the 4 corners. You'd mark your lines out completely. Then you'd have drilled a hole in your 4 corners with your brace and bit. You'd have then taken a saw like this and cut between those holes. I still use these for that purpose because I just love them. I have got a really nice Maffel P1cc jigsaw, but when I've got time, I still like to use a saw. So in the same vein as these, being for letterboxes, these saws here are what's known as keyhole saws. Very thin. These are quite long, these 2. So this one and this one came in this wooden case. I've only just acquired this one from David Stanley Auctions, but as you can see there, it has a wonderful, very small, warranted superior medallion, and those in the know would tell me who the maker was from that particular medallion. Like I say, that's quite a long one. So what you'd have done with these is you would have drilled out your I'll show you now what you would have done. You'd have drilled out your keyhole, so you'd have drilled out 2 holes, one slightly smaller one. So it's a very quick demonstration. You've drilled out your hole with your brace and bit. You need 2 sizes of bit, a slightly smaller one at the top, and a slightly smaller one at the bottom and a bigger one at the top. Even, if I can get my words out. Right. Get rid of that backing piece. There's a piece of double-sided tape on the back of the one board here because it was being used as a temporary fence. And clamping them in the vise hasn't done it a lot of good. You've then taken, I'm going to use this pad saw because my actual because my keyhole saws are not actually sharp. I've actually not gone deep enough there quite. It's good enough to get the picture. So then you end up, you cut between and you end up with a keyhole shape. And your key would have gone through there. So we then move on to so that you'd use these keyhole saws for the same purpose as that. You then move on to pad saws, which is what I've just used. So this one is a brand new Thomas Flynn. This is brand new out of the packet, midweek. It's the first time I've used it just now. And I've actually brought this one for an up and coming job on site. I've got some awkward little holes to cut that I can't get the jigsaw into, and I can't get the fane saw that is too wide. Even my cut down teeth of the fane saw are too wide, so this is what I'm going to do them with. I also own one or two period ones. This Marples one was my father's, and actually for many years this one he acquired this blade out of another one, but for years this had a piece of hacksaw blade in because it was all he could get that would fit in, and he did in the end cut one, a very crude one, out of a piece of old saw plate, because for many years you couldn't get the blades for these. So yeah, these are just standard pad saws, and some of these get to be quite, they can be quite elaborate. But again, these have been replaced by a jigsaw, or you can still buy pad saws, but they're for drywall work. They're for drywalling, and they are more like jab saws than actual pad saws. So the wonderful people at Thomas Flynn, Katie and her team, are now making blades for these saws, replacement blades. And that's what I brought these 5 for. It's for those pad saws there, so that I can have some on site and I can have some tidy ones here in the workshop to use. So that I've got those. So we then come on to these saws here, which are still very much used today, both in modern work and in period work. These are flush cut saws, so they're very thin, very flexible saws. That's a brand new Pax brand saw, again from Thomas Flynn. This one is an older Veritas. You can see this one is actually cranked in its length now, because you only use this one that is marked this side up on this one, so it's only set on one side, so you end up flexing it like this. You end up cutting your pegs off and flexing it like that. And this is a Japanese one, a Shogun one. This one is all gummed up with hide glue. I'm cutting some pegs off before the hide glue was quite fully cured. It was still a little bit sticky inside, so that I will need to warm up and clean off. Actually, these, I have to say, these little Japanese teeth on these saws, razor sharp teeth, they excel at this work of cutting plugs off. But for years I've used a Pax like this, and mine's finally given up the past few years. So for nearly 20 years I've used a Pax like this. So I've replaced it. So we then get to the big wooden frame saws at the back, and these are turning saws or bow saws. Now this one is my original one. It was second hand when I brought it, and you can see there it was made by a company called J. Gleave, Oldham Street, Manchester. And I've actually stopped using this one because the last time I used it, it split through here and here. So when you wind the tension on, because obviously you see there's no tension on it now, it just makes this crack worse and worse and worse. So unfortunately I've retired that one, and I've replaced it with a Sheffield made one, again from Thomas Flynn, again a new purchase this week. This is their turning saw, and that's how tight it should be. It should be tight like this should be tight like a bowstring. Nicely made saw, although there's one or two niggles as a joiner. I wish they'd tidy up here a bit more, not radius this corner. But actually it's a lovely saw. I have briefly just shown it a tiny amount of timber. This is actually, I've bought it for a job coming up later on in the year. Lovely slender shape to it. Again, more machine made than perhaps the Gleave, but still a lovely, lovely saw. Nice saw to use. And then I've got a period one, and this one's a more recent acquisition. Again from David Stanley, but I will use it, but I don't want to use it for heavy work, simply because I don't want the same thing to happen as has happened to my original one. This is a beautiful saw, and I want to try and keep it that way. You see there, right there, and get it focused. This is the original owner, and I also think the guy who made this saw, I think this was user made, and it's G. Blatherwick is the name on the saw. So this is, again, tight. I've tightened it up. Lovely user, lovely using saw. But again, I don't want the same fate to happen to this one as has happened to the Glebe. Hence, I bought the Thomas Flynn. So all of these tools still work, or would work if I went to the effort sharpening them. Why are they not used? I think the main reason is we've become, as a society, so power tool heavy, so invested in power tools now, that we find ways to almost use them, and we don't think about things like this. And I've seen recent videos of unpacking of toolboxes, and I also think about the kit my father carried. So my dad would take to site, he would take one of those, one of those, one of those. And if he was going, if he was going on site installing, he would then take a panel saw and a big crosscut saw and a big rip saw. But he could fit everything into 2 open totes. Yes, he would use a battery drill, and yes, he used an electric corded drill and an electric SDS drill, because why wouldn't you? In that aspect, the tools are far superior, but he still did a lot of work by hand. And I just sort of think, to myself, the amount of kit that we now take to site, because the world has become so power tool heavy and we are expected to work with power tools, this is the sort of thing that's been lost. These pack really small. These would pack into a very small box, along with a panel saw and a rip and a crosscut. You get those into a very small open tote with a chisel roll and with a roll of bits and things. And really, and a number 4 plane or a number 5 plane, whatever your preference is. And I just think to myself, maybe we need to go a bit sort of full circle and do a bit more by hand. I do, like I say, this one is for actually going into my everyday toolbox. I keep a flush cut saw like that in the van as well, in my toolbox in the van. I just think that maybe if we sort of go full circle a bit, we wouldn't need such huge amounts of tools to carry about all the time, that we end up sort of humping everywhere. I sort of, as I've got a bit older, I've sort of thought to myself, well, why are we humping all this equipment to and from site, and with the amount of theft of power tools that's currently occurring, I'm beginning to think, do I want to carry this tool, these expensive power tools to site, for them to be, then risk them being stolen? And actually, we need to look at the past and see these tools and see how efficient they were, to think, actually, why am I doing this? But all of these saws you'll see in the next few videos. As we begin to start lambing, I'll have more time to start making videos day to day, because I'm going to be in the workshop full time. Currently, I am trying to get a massive restoration project finished, and that is not conducive to being able to make videos, along with working 14, 16-hour days. We're trying to get the lambing shed ready, on top of working on site during the day. So you'll see a lot more of these sort of things being used on jobs, for repairs, for various other things in the next few videos, over the next 6 weeks or so, as I begin to do some of the more interesting projects I've got coming up. I'm going to try and film a section of remaking some sashes and how I remake if I can. Hopefully you'll notice the quality is better of this video. I have now got a new phone, which is what I use for my recording. My old phone finally died the other day, and that was another reason I was trying to wait for this phone to come before I made another video last week. So yeah, that's what's coming up. That's what we've got. We'll have a real good look at the plane library. I also the other day managed to acquire a template library from another firm that had gone into liquidation. Now they're a modern firm making modern windows, but I want to sort of show their setup templates so that you can see that actually some of what was historic has actually passed on into more modern machine-made joinery as well. There's links in the past to all of this stuff, and I sort of want to tie up the links between the two, because obviously I run a hybrid shop here. I don't do everything by hand. I do use power tools. I do use machining techniques. So I want to sort of tie up the link between the two, really, which is where I am. I'm sort of very much one foot in the past because I do a lot of historic work and repairs to historic work, hence the planes and using the planes. But I also do some machine-made replacement stuff as well. So I think there's a couple of interesting videos to come on what's possible by hand, what's possible by machine, what's possible with power tools. So that's another video that's coming. And if anybody's got any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you want to see anything in particular, if you want to see one of these saws used, please do drop it in the comments, and I will do my best to make a video on that. And for now, that's it. So over and out, guys. Keep making some shavings, and I will see you probably next weekend, because I don't think I'm going to get time to make a second video this week. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers, guys. Bye.